I'm Michelle Rochniak. When you listen to a witness, you become a witness. These are the words of Elie Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor, author, and activist. Sometimes when you read about history in school, it doesn't seem real to you. You may even think it's pointless. Why learn about something that already happened? Well, I can answer that question with a question. What if something like the Holocaust happened again? Would you figure out what was happening before it was too late? If you knew about the Holocaust already, you'd try to prevent it, right from the beginning. Today, in this very room, you will hear from a person who, as a teenager, witnessed some events from the Holocaust. As you absorb the words of this eyewitness to a terrible chapter in human history, you will also become witnesses to her story. It will be as if you were also there in Berlin in 1943.
Good morning, I'm Bianca Vargas. In language arts, we all read a play about Anne Frank. On Team 7-2, there was even a Holocaust Day where you learned about it in all of your classes. On 7-1, we currently are reading the book Torn Thread, which shows what some girls had to go through during the Holocaust. If you were Jewish and the Nazis knocked at your door, they would arrest you and say they were taking you for a short period of time. In reality, they were taking you to a concentration camp where you were most likely going to die or be killed. Today, a very special person is here to talk to us. Hannah Howard was born in Germany and grew up in Berlin. While Hannah was a young girl, World War II was raging and the tragic events of the Holocaust were happening all over Germany and Eastern Europe. Despite the war, ordinary life went on. Hannah was passionate about music, especially the piano, so she practiced hard and dreamed about playing professionally. However, danger was stalking the family. Although her father was racially pure in the eyes of the Nazis, he had married a Jew. Hannah's mother and grandmother were both Jewish. They believed at the time that their father would keep them safe. Please give a warm welcome to Hannah Howard.
Now I want to introduce you to a German teacher who has been teaching at Sheehan High School for 8 years. He was born in Germany, but he has been living in the USA for 30 years. He is married and has 2 kids. He will be interviewing Hannah about her experiences in Germany around the time of World War II. So now, please welcome Peter Fleischman.
That's good.
You're gonna do the right thing. There you go. Okay, we'll find out. Can you all hear me right? Good? Yeah? We'll figure out Hannah too. Okay. So we actually rehearsed this at Sheehan High School, just that you know. We had it in my classroom, and it was quite an experience with my German 2 and 3 classes. And so, just briefly, I only got to know Hannah very recently. I didn't know her before. But when we met, and Mr. Andresen and myself went to her apartment and listened to her story, we felt mutually both, this is something we really need to share with our students. So we did some work on the curriculum, on my side and on his side. And the spotlight definitely should be on Hannah, so I will keep my remarks very brief. But I thought it might help you to kind of follow the timeline. because what I told my students is, when we hear about 6 million Jews perished in the concentration camps or in the whole Holocaust and other huge numbers, it's so difficult to really comprehend that. So one attempt to do that is to make it personal. When we did it at Sheehan, we did individual presentations about musicians and artists who were persecuted in the time during the Nazi regime. And what we're doing here, that's exactly the point, to hear one story that is quite remarkable, because as most of the things that happened in that time of the, I would call it a Nazi terror regime, an unfathomable evil that is so difficult to at all deal with. But if we see we want to see, is there anything that gives us hope? Then if we can learn from it. And Hannah's story is definitely one that, because of her being able to escape from that very difficult situation that emerged, it had a good ending in some, for her as an individual, obviously not for all the other people who were not so lucky. So most of you are in an age where you can possibly relate to what happened in Hannah's lifetime. She was born in the midst of the Great Depression, which is roughly between 1929 and 1939. And when she was 8 years old, imagine, if you remember 8 years old, what that felt like, the Nazis came to power. By the time she was 14, World War II started in 1939. And by the time the war ended in 1945, she was 20. So she's spanning something where you're kind of right in the middle of it, and you can possibly relate to some of what happened there. So I always like to start with I want to start with the chronology and say, Hannah, what is your memory that goes furthest back in terms of how the Nazi regime became part of your life?
Well, I usually like to start with 1942 for the very reason that the most upsetting event happened. My grandmother, who was part of our family, and my father had her live with us because he thought he could protect her. And one summer when we were on vacation, my parents raced home because they had been told that my grandmother got some kind of message that told her that one of these days she would be deported. Now you have to know she was 78 years old, and her only son had died in World War II. That didn't make any difference. She also told me, I thought I was a German. My family has been here for 200 years. She said that, and I believe it. And many of the German Jews were not religious Jews, but that didn't matter to the Nazis at all. As long as you were racially Jew, you were supposed to be eliminated. So they came in November 42. I was 17 years old, and I happened to be home. I was almost 18 actually, because I was there. I was home to get ready for my final exam in high school, and two SS men rang the bell. It was already scary the way they rang the bell. And they came in and walked her out, this slender, lovely old woman who looked at us as she was walked out between these two SS men and said, "You must just think now that I'm dead." And we were completely helpless. My mother and I were standing there, and you couldn't do anything. It's an incredible thing to think that they didn't care how old somebody was or what her background was. They just walked her out. And we think eventually my older brother found out that she was probably dead within a month, and we never knew what happened to her. She was supposed to be shipped to what was considered the best camp among all the camps, Theresienstadt, and there was one where the Red Cross had access. And so we thought that as bad as it sounded, she was probably safe, but she wasn't. So we don't know how she died. And that's the first thing that always comes to my mind, and something you never forget. So in 43, should I just go in, Peter?
Sure. Yeah.
It's in 43, I was again home getting ready for my exams as a 12th grader, and two SS-men came and set my mother down and talked to her fairly nicely, because they might have thought at first this one can't possibly be Jewish. They had this crazy idea about Jews. And suddenly they said, you have to come with us, and if any of your children are with you, they can come too. I tell you, I was behind the door and heard that. I felt like running away. I mean, a big impulse. But then I said, you can't leave your mother. And so I called my father, who was a bank director in the inner city in Berlin, and I don't have any idea how he made it home on time. I packed some things for my mother, who was struck dumb. She couldn't move. And something for me, and I found out when they walked us out, well, I should first say my father made it home. Can you imagine standing there and have your wife and your daughter being taken out with a completely unpredictable future and not being able to do anything? He was white. So they walked us out, and it turned out there was a truck waiting, an open air truck. And at the end was a guy with the, I always have trouble with that word.
Machine gun?
Not a pistol.
With a rifle.
With a rifle. He was protecting us. No, he was watching us so we couldn't get away. And it was cold, it was March. And there was open air. And my father came running after us, thank goodness, with a blanket or two. So we didn't freeze, because they took us through Berlin the whole day, and more people got loaded up. And you know what was sad? There were people in the streets who were watching us, as if they didn't care, or maybe they were glad, I don't know. But they could have thought. So they drove us all the way through the city all day long until we ended up in the famous Rosenstraße. Rosenstraße was a Jewish, I don't know, what was it?
Community center?
Community center, I think. And they asked us to give them back our passports, and we were herded in one room. And as I remember, there was one single mattress on the floor, and I had nothing to sit down on except the floor. And on the mattress was a mother with her children. But there was another young man, and we sort of hooked up, and we went upstairs. They let us walk around, and the upstairs was a shock in itself, because there were Jews with cardboard things around their neck. And I tell you, it felt like animals taken to slaughter. Did we talk to them? I don't remember that we did, but it was a shock to see them. So we stayed in, I don't remember getting anything to eat or drink. I just don't remember it. And we heard a lot of noise outside, but we couldn't tell what they were saying. So eventually we found out it was a so-called revolt of the women in the Rosenstraße. There's a famous movie made, and the women were shouting, "We want our husbands back, we want our children back." And somehow the Nazis, even then in 43 in the spring, got cold feet. So they gave us back our passports, and the next day in the evening they said, "You can go home, it was a mistake." And my father, who had been told by those SS men who got my mother and me to bring his 2 sons to a collection place, he was told there was a mistake, so he could take them home. But when he got there, was only when he found that out. I mean, he thought he was having to get rid of his whole family. It was, I don't know how he lasted. So the women saved me. I'm sure that's why I'm here, because that's the only revolt during the Nazi time that I know about. And they were, knowing the Nazis, they could not have predicted whether they would all be loaded up in trucks themselves because they revolted. But they certainly saved us, I'm sure. So what else?
Well, I think that was certainly the most essential part of your experience, right? So maybe it helps to get a little bit more background on your siblings, your family, your father, mother, and brothers.
We had a wonderful home life, but we were all considered, well, we were somewhat handicapped. We were somewhat second citizens because I was in school, but I wasn't allowed to join the group of German girls, which I would have loved to do. And when I graduated, they all went, this is a story I didn't tell Friday, I forgot it. When I graduated, they all went to camps and had a good time. I would have loved it because I loved sports. Music and sports were my favorite things. Not the only ones, but my favorite ones. So I had to go and work in a farm. It was fairly close to Germany, and I tell you, I worked like a man because there were no men on that farm. And I was the only one who could really work. I mean, I had they had these tile ovens in each room, and I had to lay the fire in each of those 3 tile ovens. And I worked outside, digging potatoes and cutting wood and name it. And because I sort of liked outdoors, I didn't feel that it was too bad. It was kind of lonely. And when I was done with that, I had to got a job at a factory, which was not too bad either because I could write a lot, and so I was welcome. But then in December, they what's the word I want? Conscripted me, I got the word. They conscripted me to work in the north of Berlin. I had to be there at 7 in the morning. That's hard for me. And it was cold. It was, December. And we were occupied with shovels to get all the bricks. Bricks are heavy, I tell you, to clean the place around gas connections. And I had to do that until the war was over. And my father lost his job, and he was conscripted to out of Berlin to work in, I always want to say,
Auf Deutsch?
excuse me,
In German?
in German, Flugplatz.
Oh yeah. The airport.
Airports, sorry. This is my German memory, so sometimes the German is the only thing that comes up. But my brothers also were conscripted, so they couldn't stay with us. They also, I think, worked behind the front. The lucky thing was, they weren't killed. The only thing that happened, that I said something about my father. The Americans, for whatever reasons, let the Russians take Berlin. And my father probably thought he was safe. He was in a mixed marriage, and he was a Nazi victim, losing his job. So he insisted to go into the city of Berlin, in the inner city, to see what had happened to the bank where he had put a lot of our whatever we had. And the Russians picked him up, and we never saw him again. Now you might say, why in the world did the Russians take him? I think they took a lot of the well-trained, active Germans, middle to old age, to keep them from rebuilding Berlin. And then, of course, they didn't feed them enough, so he died in the camp. Oh, I want to say something that one of the people there asked me, did I have Jewish friends? I was the only half-Jewish person in my class. And yes, I have Jewish friends now. I didn't then because they all disappeared. I didn't see them. But some of my best friends now are Jews, and why not? I love them. So, are we ready for questions, or what should we do?
Are you guys ready for questions? Okay.
I believe some students had some questions prepared ahead of time. Where are they?
You might have to translate for me.
Oh yeah, I'll help you. You're doing good.
Do you wish you did anything differently during the Holocaust?
Do I wish that I had done something differently?
Yeah.
Do you wish you did anything different during the Holocaust?
Well, the general... First of all, I didn't know that the Holocaust had taken place until the war was over. Oh, I should talk into this thing. I forgot. I'm sorry. I wished I had not been so anxious to hide my Jewish heritage. There was a general feeling in Germany that you better hide it if you can, because it's a bad thing to have, to be. And I'm very sad about that, because it's a great heritage. There's nothing wrong with having Jewish ancestors. I wished I had been part of it instead of trying to hide it. Yes, I'm sorry about that.
What motivated you to go on every day and stay strong?
I couldn't understand you. Can you tell me?
What motivated you to go on every day and stay strong?
Uh, Good question. I never lost hope that things would change, that the Nazis would disappear. I am a musician, and doing music, I think, had a lot to do with it. But I think basically I am a positive thinker, whether it's justified or not. But I'm sure I always thought it would get better. One of these days, I would be able to study music, which I did eventually. But it took a while. You know, my hands were in such bad shape after I had to take the weight of the
Bricks.
Ziegel?
Yeah, bricks.
Bricks. I couldn't think of the English word suddenly. That I had to take a whole year to just get them in shape again and practice and have a new teacher. And then I got into the Musikhochschule, which is a music school in the, you know, Charlottenburg is a side, oh God, I can't think of the word again. Well, it's part of Berlin. And was I in the West? Yes, I was in the West. So I was happy when I could practice. But I guess I never really lost hope. During the trip in the truck to Rosenstrasse, I didn't think I would die, but I thought I might have to work so hard that I would die. I lost hope a little bit then.
Okay.
What
Is there
was-
yeah, go ahead.
What was the thing you thought about after the Holocaust ended?
Excuse me?
What was the thing you thought about after the Holocaust ended?
I still didn't understand the first part.
Can you repeat it, please?
What was the thing you thought about after the Holocaust ended?
Okay, at the end of the war, what were you thinking about?
Well, first of all, as I said, I didn't know till the war was over that the Holocaust had happened. I wondered whether my grandmother had perished because of that. I was shocked. What did I think? I mean, you know, hear about such an incredible thing, and they had killed not thousands, hundreds of thousands or more. It was something, you don't get over that, you know, you just think, how can people be so evil? And I was also, you know, sometimes when I tell people I'm German, I have no idea what they think. Because if they think about the Holocaust, and that's my background in a way, I don't necessarily talk about my real background, but it's shocking to hear about that. It's just unbelievable.
Okay, next question.
Did you ever imagine that you would be a victim of the Nazis?
Yes, I did. You know, when I was driven to the Rosenstrasse, I never expected to be let go again. I thought, I didn't know they would possibly kill anybody, not then. I didn't know that in 43. But I thought they might work me so hard that I wouldn't last. So I thought I might perish.
Do you think the Germans should have or could have done something differently to stop the Nazis?
Could you, I have to have this translated. Oh, you know, I wish they had. It's just incredible how Hitler sort of swayed them. And, you know, many people love to feel better than others. And they were told, of course, being Aryan, they were the beautiful race, and the Jews were below them. And I think some people probably would have liked to have done something. I mean, at one point there was a group that was trying really seriously to assassinate Hitler, but they were somehow caught or it didn't work. But I mean, there were some people who wanted to end that evil reign. He was crazy and evil, there's no question about it.
Okay, I think you guys have good questions.
Did the Nazis ever get aggressive with you?
Did they ever do what?
Get aggressive with you?
I don't
Did
know.
any violence, any aggression towards you?
No, except for loading me up and taking me to the Rosenstraße, where I didn't know what would happen. It wasn't an act of aggression so much as during my childhood and school time. There were many things I wasn't allowed to do. I wasn't worthy because I was half Jewish.
What
Can-
was it?
Okay, go ahead. That's fine.
What was it like living during the Holocaust? Did you suffer?
I didn't know about the Holocaust till the war was over. My parents, you know, somebody asked me, did my parents talk much about things? No, I don't remember almost at all, and I thought about it, and I think they were very cautious. They thought if one of us children let something slip, it would be very dangerous for them. So they didn't really talk about it. I think they may have known, but I didn't. So there was nothing I could do. I was as appalled as everybody else when I heard about it. Unbelievable.
Do you wish you knew more about the Holocaust while it was happening?
Do I wish I had known?
Known more. If you had known
Known
more.
more about the Holocaust, where it was. You know, you want to know about such things at your age? I doubt it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I can't wish that I had known more. I knew it in plenty of time, as far as I'm concerned. There's not a thing I could have done.
Was that your prepared question? One more? That was it? Well, my brief comment on that is when we talk about that, to put it in context, I usually describe it as a noose that was tightening. And there's actually, when you look at it, there was not any, the persecution really started in 1933 when the Nazis came to power. And almost month to month, new regulations, new things were kind of, you would say today, constructed to make life for the people that they didn't like difficult. And Jewish people, of course, were the ultimate target, but there were communists targeted, there were homosexuals targeted, there were political enemies targeted, there were all kinds of people targeted in this whole period leading up. And most of the rights, I mean, the final step is when people take you out of your home, which took place for most Jewish families by the beginning of the war. The fact that Hannah and her family still lived in their house until 1943 is because they had, in a sense, a privileged status that was not as bad as if you would be just Jewish. Half Jewish was a little bit better in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to show a little bit from the movie Rosenstraße.
Okay.
If I can have the lights down, please. So the movie is fictional, but it will allow you to see some of the events that Hannah was just describing. I'm going to warn you, though, the movie's in German, although you can get a sense of it just by listening. There will be subtitles that you can read. This first little scene is a girl has just avoided being arrested, and the rest of her family has just been arrested to be deported.
eyes are not very good, so don't worry about it.
So right there, you just saw like a truck, like the same one that Hannah was transported in when she was brought to Rosenstrasse. After the arrest, Hannah and her mother were taken to the detention center, which was located on Rosenstrasse, which just means Rose Street in German. So I'm going to show you a scene from there.
So, runter! Und ein bisschen schneller Bewegung! Schneller! Los, runter! Schneller! Alles raus! Los, rein da!
Wollen die uns hier festhalten?
Oder evakuieren.
Wohin?
Am Osten. Auf jeden Fall. Getrennt von unseren Frauen und Kindern.
Haben Sie Ihre Frau benachrichtigen können?
Nein. Niemand von uns.
Sie meinen, dass Sie uns von hier wegbringen, ohne dass unsere Frauen es wissen?
Meine Frau wird schon nach mir suchen.
Und wenn Sie uns nicht finden?
Dann wird es ohne Abschied sein.
Please forgive me, I forgot the subtitles.
Liebster Louis,
Ich kann ihn nicht finden. Tut mir leid.
So, runter!
I'm just going to replay that scene, sorry.
Schneller Bewegung! Schneller! Los, runter! Schneller! Alles raus! Los, rein da!
Wollen die uns hier festhalten?
Oder evakuieren.
Wohin?
Am Osten.
Auf jeden Fall. Getrennt von unseren Frauen und Kindern.
Haben Sie Ihre Frau benachrichtigen können?
Nein. Niemand von uns.
Sie meinen, dass Sie uns von hier wegbringen, ohne dass unsere Frauen es wissen?
Meine Frau wird schon nach mir suchen.
Und wenn Sie uns nicht finden?
Dann wird es ohne Abschied sein.
So there you see the crowded conditions inside the Rosenstrasse. From here, the movie goes to events that Hannah couldn't witness. Locked up on the inside, she couldn't see what was going on outside. Non-Jewish family members went to the Rosenstrasse to find out what had happened to their loved ones.
Nächste Haltestelle Rosenstraße.
Gehen Sie zurück, bitte.
Ach, entschuldigen Sie. Verzeihen Sie, ist das nicht das jüdische Wohlfahrtsamt?
Das war es mal. Jetzt ist es zum jüdischen Gefängnis geworden.
Was? Und wie kann man erfahren, wen Sie darin eingesperrt haben?
Ich habe einfach behauptet, mein Mann hätte den Hausschlüssel. Der Schub ist reingegangen und hat mir tatsächlich den Schlüssel gebracht. Der Mittlere. Seitdem weiß ich, dass er da drin ist.
Ach bitte, mein Mann ist da drin. Er hat unsere Lebensmittelkarten. Ich bräuchte sie dringend.
Unsere Karten hat meine Frau. Das Einkaufen ist doch Frauensache.
Ja, natürlich, da haben Sie völlig recht. Nur, es ist so, ich muss schon morgens ganz früh arbeiten und er dagegen arbeitet nachts. Verstehen Sie?
Wie heißt denn Ihr Mann?
Fabian Fischer.
Haben Sie da nicht was vergessen?
Entschuldigung, Fabian Israel Fischer.
Schon gut. Da sehe ich mal, was ich für Sie tun kann.
So the questions led to frustration and soon grew into a protest.
Also ich bleib hier stehen, bis ich was erfahre. Hier, meine Kleine. Trink mal einen Schluck. Ist schön heiß. Was heißt es? Steck deine Hände in die Tasche. Guck mal.
Da ist einer. Hans! Hans! Schatz! Das ist mein Mann! Schatz! Simon!
Mann wieder haben. Ich will meinen Mann wieder haben. Ich will meinen Mann wieder haben.
Simon!
Ich will meinen Mann wieder zurück. Ich will meinen Mann wieder haben. Ich will meinen Mann wieder haben. Ich will meinen Mann wieder haben.
Ich will meinen Mann wieder haben.
Wir wollen unsere Männer wieder haben.
Ich will meinen Mann wieder haben.
Wir wollen unsere Männer wieder haben. Wir wollen unsere Männer wieder haben. Wir wollen unsere Männer wieder haben. Wir wollen unsere Männer wieder haben.
Wir wollen unsere Männer wieder haben. Wir wollen unsere Männer wieder haben.
As the protest grows, the Nazis realize that this is a threat to their authority and their control over the population, so they send the SS to restore order.
Entschuldigen Sie, man sagte uns, dass unsere Männer von hier weggebracht würden.
Das ist wohl so beschlossen worden.
Wohin denn?
Ich weiß nicht.
Ich würde so gern meinen Mann noch einmal sehen.
Das kann ich verstehen. Aber es ist ja nun mal unmöglich.
Ich könnte doch nachts, wenn Sie allein Dienst haben.
Das würde mich den Kragen kosten, Frau Fischer. Und Ihnen auch.
Aber vielleicht hinten, im Hinterhof, da sieht mich doch keiner. Ich will meinen Mann zurück.
Gebt uns unsere Männer wieder. Wir wollen unsere Männer wieder haben. Ich will meinen Mann zurück. Ich will meinen Mann wieder zurückhaben. Ich will meinen Mann zurückhaben.
Da hören Sie, Sie wollen alle zu Ihren Männern.
Unsere Männer wieder haben. Gebt uns unsere Männer wieder zurück. Gebt unsere Männer wieder.
Absetzen!
Sometimes when you feel powerless and you could stand up to evil, you could be successful. This protest is what freed Hannah, and probably is why she's sitting on this stage today.
Mutti! Erika! Peter! David! Peter! David!
Inge!
Raphael!
Lights, please.
Huh? Before you all go, we'd like to thank these amazing people for coming here today and making this presentation possible. Hannah Howard, Peter Fleischman, and Hannah's friend, Beatrix Roller. We also wish Hannah a happy birthday when she turns 90 years old next week. Thank you, Glory Villano, for the wonderful piano music. Some teachers also need to be thanked, including Mr. Bogish, Miss Peeler, Miss Wolfram, Mr. Morowski, and Miss Branzel. We would also like to thank the two girls who assisted Miss Howard, Sydney Kareem and Julia Helinsky.
At the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned a quote. Elie Wiesel said that when you listen to a witness, you become a witness. What he means by this is when you listen to someone's story, in a way, you're experiencing it yourself. When someone describes how they felt, you can feel that emotion inside of you. When someone describes how something happened, you can picture it in your head, almost like a movie. If you can feel how Hannah felt and picture things how she can, you are experiencing her life story. When you heard Hannah's story and watched clips of the movie, you could see into the past. You know in your heart that this monstrous evil actually took place. You know that its victims were real people, like Hannah and her family. Now, you are also a witness to it. Thank you.
Okay. Are you taking her? Okay, wait. We're gonna wait. Wait. Not yet.
Okay, this concludes our assembly. Teachers can dismiss your students.
and 3 and 4 and